If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment, let us know what you think about the episode. If there's a particular guest or topic that you'd like to hear from. We're always checking your feedback comments on YouTube and love to be able to take those suggestions and then get them onto future episodes. Today I'm going to be chatting with Lenny Reed, the founder of Dynomite Diesel Products. Wanted to catch up with him on the big move they've had into a new building, an injector sale that they have, get caught up on all the cool things that they're working on with new machinery, the business, and also ask him some questions I've gotten from some of you who are starting diesel shops or just have questions about business that you want to have answered. So I look forward to chatting with him today. Before we get to it, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors that helps make the Diesel Podcast possible. Kershaw Knives has a discount code that gets you up to 40% off MSRP. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code 40 TDP 2024, get you up to 40% off MSRP. They've got a ton of different choices for EDC knives, hunting, fishing, ones around you could use around the house, around the job site, and a whole bunch of different options for blade steel, blade shape, handle designs, different opening mechanisms. We appreciate them offering this discount code just for Diesel Podcast listeners. There's so many choices to meet really any budget that you might have. So if you're in the market, head on over to their website, use code 40 TDP 2024 for up to 40% off MSRP. All right, let's get to today's podcast with Lenny Reed, talking about injectors, the new building they just moved into, and answering some of your questions. Lenny, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. Looks like we got a different venue behind you today. I think we're in the shop in the garage. You got a truck behind you. I think there's always a cool picture. I think I saw some on Instagram a few years ago with the American flag on the tailgate.
This thing is such a, this truck, a buddy of mine airbrushed that. So it's not a decal. That's actually like a true life for real airbrushing of the American flag. And yeah, I wanted to, I'm feeling so good since the election that, that my people are going to be back in the wheelhouse. It's like, oh man, it feels so good. So yeah, I just wanted to be in the garage out here and I call this truck Lady Liberty, and I got a dog named Liberty as well. So, I'm all about America, but now it feels like America's about America,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's an exciting time. I saw recently you guys had like a dealer training, like a dealer kind of workshop where a bunch of people from all over the country came in. And while I saw pictures on Instagram and heard about it, I unfortunately wasn't able to go. So I wanted to get an inside look. What was that like, having a bunch of different companies there, presenters, being able to talk with them?
So basically, I've always, and I told this to Premier Products like back in 03, 04. I said, man, if you really want to, because, back then I was super young and I had a company. I didn't know how to run it. And I went there and there was a bunch of real professional dudes that knew how to run companies, right? And I told them back then, I said, look, if you really want to be very successful, build a company that people will be loyal to because they appreciate you, not just for slinging them parts, but for like the relationship you built and the success that you're part of with them. And they didn't do it. Nobody's ever done it. I just, as soon as we got in the new building, which finally is done, hallelujah. Once we got in the new building, we held our first dealer training, and it was amazing because we invited out a bunch of dealers. I wanted to keep it under 50, and I think we had 44 or 45 in total. But basically, there was 2 days worth of training, and it wasn't just an alcohol-induced party. It was actual, like, we showed up and we did things. I had half a group for about 4 hours. Rebecca had the other half of my group, and she was teaching people how to run their companies, from a CFO standpoint. And I was teaching people, like, we are Dynomite Diesel. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is why we're different. And, who you need to get a hold of as a dealer for certain very specific questions. Now, everybody that came to my dealer network meeting knows exactly who's on the EDM and who's on the AFM and who does their calibration for the injectors. And, when you open up one of our remans, they are insanely perfectly clean and spotless. And they know why now. Like, we go, it's painstaking, but all of our remans even the armatures get torn down to nothing, and they get washed in 3 different solutions, and they come out looking brand new. And I wanted everybody, all of my dealer network, to actually see what we do, right? So I did that. Rebecca ran, like, this is how to run your company healthy. These are things you need to do. You hit me up with a question about that already, so we'll bring that up later. But and then I hired a guy named Tony Salas, and he has a company where he goes out and trains OEM type stuff. So anything diesel related with emissions and all that kind of stuff, this guy's kind of the go-to like guru. And it was amazing for me because the meeting was held on a Thursday and a Friday, and Monday I had people hitting me up saying, "Dude, I am already employing things that I learned during the meeting. I can't wait for the next one." And my goal, I had a few goals this year. Like if you're a solid human, you should start your year with goals. And the company goal for me this year was either build a building or get into a new building that was going to be the next level for us. So we had room for expansion and growth. Old building was very limited, and we were out of space, out of bathrooms, out of everything. The new building is double the square feet, plus there's about 2.5 acres in the backyard. So now, like, I could probably build another 100,000 square feet back there. So I don't think that we'll ever leave this property, like, not in my career, anyways. The company may after I'm long gone and past, but I don't think that to be anytime in the next decade. So we got in the new building. That was goal number one. And goal number two was to have that dealer meeting and make sure it was successful. Kirk Beglin is one of the outside sales guys, and he reached out to all of our dealers, and every one of them said that they will definitely want to come back if we hold it again. So we've already decided that we're going to hold it again in April. And of course, it's going to be bigger because there's going to be some guys that come back and there's going to be some new ones. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to lay out. Maybe instead of us walking around the shop and showing people individually, maybe everybody just does like PowerPoints and things like that to try and keep the group together and get them through 3 different versions of training. But that went really successful. So I'm very proud of that. It turned out awesome. And I hope that all my dealers get to actually use that information. You'll make their companies, more profitable and more stable, right? So that's the key. So yeah, that was the answer to your question was yes, that meeting was killer. It was amazing.
We've talked before about how important it is, and I think different now of transferring knowledge and experience to not just your dealers, but younger people who are in the industry versus holding on to the knowledge, not sharing it, and it almost stifling the creativity or stifling the future. So I think that's probably a huge part of it, as well as being able to help people who support you, you support them, and you're able to knowledge transfer and transfer experience to them.
100%, because creativity will generally come from younger people. They don't know the limitations that I've already experienced. So they're thinking of ideas that I ran into roadblocks, and they're thinking they've got a fresh idea that's a little bit different than how I ran into the roadblock. Or when I was the younger guy walking in, when I met George, the guy at the EDM store, when I bought my EDM, I had all these things that I want to do. And he's like, no, it's not possible. It's not possible. And then I'm like, dude, we got to try it. We got to try it. We got to try it. And then we did it. And he was very excited because he got to see his EDMs doing things that he never dreamed that they would do, because as we get older, we run into roadblocks and we start thinking that there's a ceiling on everything. So it's extremely important to bring in fresh, new, young blood to keep that creative spice going. And, everybody that I have that's, sub 30 years old is still that, zany, crafty, creative. Yeah, it's amazing because I can walk in when they're running into roadblocks and in 2 minutes be like, well, did you look at this? Did you look at that? Did you check this? No. Okay, let's do that. And oftentimes we come up to a solution pretty quickly because I have met those roadblocks before, but they come up with creative new things and it's killer. So I really enjoy working with a young crew, and we hired another guy, Jerry, today. My Brazilian buddy came in last week, and Rex from Allied Diesel down in California started last week. So in the last 7 days, we've had 3 guys start. So I think I want to say that with outside sales, I think we're at 31 people under the company's umbrella at this point. So insanely huge growth for a very short duration of time. Since I've been doing this podcast with you, it's been like 3 years. I
Yeah.
promise my crew is at least double now. Promise.
What's really cool,
And
and I heard,
that's
what's really cool is to hear
sorry,
the things that you talked about early on 3 or 4 years ago. They're happening now, and you were talking about them a long time ago.
dude, I'm old. Like 2008 bit me. Like 2008, it bit me because I'd never, as an adult, I'd never been through a recession and I didn't know what that was going to be like. And it hit, I was in the Seattle area at that point, and it hit that Seattle area really, really, really hard. So when it got me, I was like, man, I'm never going to do this again. Like I don't want to go back to being broke ever. Right. And that was a struggle. So this time around, anybody with half a brain that was, not sitting in the shade, um, they could see that once this last administration got elected in, they instantly like went right for everybody's pocketbooks and to do anything they could against diesel and what have you. And they tried to tell us that we were going to be buying electric vehicles in 8 to 10 years, or else we weren't going to be able to register our cars. And it was too fast. Like there's not enough infrastructure for that to happen that quickly. California is already regretting that, and they're having to tax people on miles. I think that they're driven now in their electric vehicles because they lost all the road tax from gas. Duh. Like you got to think about those things or quit spending the money, right? Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm feeling very blessed because ever since the election night, like the next morning when everybody knew that Trump was, going to be elected, we are up approximately 20 to 25% in sales. And this year, my number one selling part in 2024 is a stock injector, which tells me that people are just trying to keep their old stuff running, right?
Yeah.
And probably with the assistance of private equity companies buying my competitors and destroying those companies, we're up 30% this year for year-to-date sales already. So the new building, like putting more people in there and all these things, our EDMs are the slowest process. And this week is the very first week that we're going to run the EDM 60 hours. So January 1st, all of my production crew is going to get broken up into an A team and a B team. And basically, because like a lot of the machines that we use are super expensive, like $250,000 plus, right? And you can't just keep buying machines and putting a new guy on a machine. At some point, you have to actually ask the machine to run more hours. So I came up with a division of the crew, and on Monday, we're going to start a 4-10 shift. So half the crew is going to work until Thursday evening. And then Wednesday morning, there will be crossover because a bunch of the guys, half the team is not going to work until Wednesday. They come in Wednesday and then they're going to work clear until Saturday night. So for production wise, like on all those really expensive machines, we'll be running 60 hours a week from January 1st on. But this week we started this morning, I decided that we would put the guys that run EDMs on 60 hours right now. So we split them up already just to kind of, if there's any learning curve or, speed bumps or road bumps, like I want to learn that this week before I throw the whole crew at it.
Yeah.
But this week, like, yeah, we're going to be on the EDM 60 hours this week. So, dude, it's a good time to be me. Like my crew's amazing. I can't brag enough about my crew. I can't brag enough about the things they've done this year. I mean, how they've, the week before we moved, so I spent the whole year pretty much like doing construction with construction dudes and, trying to get all that stuff ironed out. And then I helped move, and I had to go to the engine dyno. So I was in Missouri for a few days. And then I had to swing down by your neck of the woods because Skylar, one of the guys at the shop, bought a Pro Mod car. So I swung into Denver, just north of Denver, bought this Pro Mod, then hauled it home for him. I came back, got to the gym Saturday morning, which is in our shop, and it was done. And it wasn't just like all of our crap was in there, but it was done, painted, clean, everything was finished. And because we had dealer training the coming Thursday, right? And I figured like Monday morning I was going to be just like hair on fire. But no, it was pretty well dialed in. It was just a matter of really just tightening up everything. And there were some hoses, like some of the tools are liquid cooled. So we had to modify, hoses to make sure all the liquid cooling was working correctly and whatnot. But the crew pretty much handled it. And I'm just telling you, like, if you're lucky enough to have a crew that's as badass as my crew, like you're really, really, really fortunate. And I can't thank them enough. They're just amazing. So
I know there's a lot of the younger people in this industry that I talk to. They're looking, I think attention gets pulled a bunch of different ways when they're looking for that kind of that knowledge transfer, learning about experience. And so when I heard about the dealer training you were doing, I got really excited because we've talked for 3, 4, 5 years, doing episodes talking about different things in the industry. And one of the really important parts is, I don't know, it's kind of like a trend over the last 4 years where I've seen people that they're almost trying to, maybe it's a business, I'm not sure, but they want to be the authority on how to build a business. And for me, the first thing I look for is, have you built a business before? Is it successful? Have you been through the ups and the downs and the things like that? So, and in some cases, I know they haven't. So with you doing this, I got really excited because you've talked about the early days. You've talked about some of the trials, the tribulations, the roadblocks, kind of building it to a point, having to rebuild it, going through all these things. So you're able to take that real tangible experience and then hand that off to someone who's younger. And it's not like you're just, I don't know the right word, but when I see people almost being taken advantage of and being told how to do something when that person hasn't done it themselves, it creates an issue, where I don't think you're doing them a service. So I was pumped when I saw you do that. So it's cool to hear the feedback that you got and the information you're able to pass on and then be able to do it again.
Yeah, I don't think that I can run my books at all. Like, I promise you I can't. But Rebecca's got that under lock and key, and she's got it, it's good. She's good at that area. Like, she can't do what I can do. So, but you're absolutely right, because you look at like YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you got these dudes that aren't even like 30 years old and they're making a shitload of money on something. And I mean, God bless, good for you, right? Like Jake Paul the dude made $40 million fighting Mike Tyson. He bet his $40 million that he'd win. He was the underdog. So he ended up winning even more than his 40 million. Plus his company was the promoter. So that dude probably walked out making $100 million that day, right? And I mean, you could talk a lot of crap about Jake Paul, but you can't talk crap about the dude's strategy and the fact that he not only laid out the strategy, but he also executed it and did it with precision. He nailed it. So a dude like that, if he was to come on, and say, look, I'm going to teach you how to run a company, like, wrong guy. Can he make money? Absolutely. And when he's got gray hair and he's like 55 and 60 and he can look back and tell you about all the times that he made money and then went broke, like, that dude's got a story to tell. And I'm right there with you, because there's so many guys that haven't done what Jake Paul's done, and they're out there saying shit like, you got to grind it out. Dude, you don't have a gray hair on your face and you're telling me about grinding? Like, see me when you turn 50, because you don't know. Like, grinding is all the shit you put your family through. It's all the shit that you learn with your employees as you go along. It's the really good employees that you lost because you weren't treating them right. It's the bad employees that you should have got rid of way earlier. It's how you intermingled your business into your family life and your family life into your business. And as you go through all this stuff, you start to learn like what works and what doesn't. And if you're paying attention to your own actions, you don't keep repeating the same mistakes. But yeah, like John Wayne would call it grit. You got to have the grit to do it. Well, that's true, but man, you really got to have the grit to stay in the seat too. Like, when I was going broke, there was a lot of me that was like, man, I'm going to go fill out an application to Les Schwab, go back to flipping tires and just, wait for my pension to come in. But the problem was at that point, like I didn't know how much I owed the government in taxes. So there was no way that I could ever plan on making just one man's salary and being able to pay that debt off. So I had to stay in it. And then when I figured out what the number was, I thought, okay, well, if I do, this, and this for the next 2 or 3 years, like I'll be out of the woods. And as long as you tell yourself to do something, you'll do it. But there's got to be something more than just inspiration there, because inspiration doesn't get anybody, out of the woods, right? Like that's how you get in the woods. That ain't how you get out. So yeah, when it comes to running a company, like I would have to say that at this point in my life, I could do it again, but I don't want to. Like I see all these dudes that are starting companies, and I got a buddy of mine who's kicking ass. Like I'm just so proud of him because he's always got like a new company he's starting up and he's firing up. But he's a manager. Like that dude is a 100% manager. He's extremely successful with the stuff that he runs because he goes in it with the same method of operation. He hires people that can do things that he doesn't know how to do. And then he makes sure that he's got backup plans to backup plans, and companies turn into success. He will sell those things to like private equity money. And from what I've seen in the automotive industry anyway, the private equity money has destroyed. Hell, I'm in a building right now that private equity, it used to be a Flowmaster building, and now it's not, because they tried to figure out how to make the most amount of profit. So they got rid of the super skilled staff that was in that building and moved them or fired them. And, the quality of the product is not what it used to be. So it's, man, I tell you, like looking at some of the competitors that got bought by private equity money because right during COVID, like all that money was being jammed into basically the whole transmission world. If you built a transmission, they bought you, right? South Bend Peter was thinking about selling out, and they did not sell out. And I can tell you right now that if they would have sold out, that company wouldn't be in the same shape that it's in right now, I promise. And it wouldn't have affected Peter and his brothers, but it would have affected the employees and the consumer. A lot of these companies that we compete against, hell, we're getting like kudos right now. And this is weird to me. It's blowing me away. People comment because we pick up the goddamn phone.
Wow.
We answer the phone, and people are like, whoa, you answer the phone? Well, yeah, we answer the phone. How do you get them? Like, well, some companies have an automation, and they, go to like push this button for that and push that button for that. And I'm like, wow, that'd be fun. As soon as you get a warranty, you keep pushing 911, 911, 911. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because it seems to be working. And, listening to people that are better at their gig than me. And I tell my crew all the time, like, I have these two eyeballs, and whatever I'm staring at is what I'm going to pay attention to right now. So if you see something that I don't, then don't bottle it up, because I'll never fix it until I walk over and stumble over it. You might be really upset, or it might bite this company. So please let me know about it. There's 30 of us now. Like everybody there's observing something different than me every day. Hell, my day today was getting snow piles ready. So everything that we need to plow when it snows is taken care of. And that way my employees don't, have to worry about like where they're going to park and move and cut. I'd rather move the snow before the employees ever show up to work, rather than have everybody play like musical cars while I'm out there getting ready to bump into somebody's truck. Right. So right. Just trying to make sure they got a clean, safe environment so they can stay productive is like my goal at this point. And I enjoy the heck out of it. I'm liking it. I think it's fun. This week I've got to go down to Edge Products, and I'm going to see dealers on the way down there and on the way back. So that's in a nutshell. Like tomorrow I dyno, and today I had a meeting with an engineer. We're working on a new project that will take us about a year to get to, but basically the EO testing has been extremely difficult. I've spent thousands of dollars, and I've given my truck to people, and it's come back broken and costing me months of troubleshooting and thousands of dollars in parts to get the truck put back together. So we're basically going to develop our own module that we will program on the dyno and do all of our own gas testing. And that module is going to be in the box with the injectors. So we'll have control over like injector duration, boost, the intake, all of it. We're going to have pressure. Our module will plug in, similar to like any plug and play module right now, but it's going to be calibrated specifically for that set of injectors. And we're going to get them all EO tested as well. So that's part of going down to edge and checking on that. But there's a lot of opportunities out there because these trucks are so bloody much money right now. Who wants to drop $100,000 on a brand new truck? Well, I do, but who can afford it? Like everybody wants to drive a brand new truck, but now that how many guys have gone to prison for deleting trucks now, and how many guys are getting ready to go to prison? Because there's one dude in Wyoming right now, right? Like it's not good. You're not going to be deleting trucks forever. So we got to get our minds off of that and just get to the point where, hell, you buy a brand new truck with an 10 speed transmission that makes 450 to 500 horsepower. That thing tows whatever is legal as fast as you could ever possibly dream of going, right? So let's just get really good at troubleshooting, fixing, and enhancing, because pretty soon that thing's going to, even these brand new trucks, one day it's going to need a set of injectors. And when I've got a set of injectors that has a module, you plug it in, it's another 50 horsepower and it's legal. Like now you got a 550 horsepower truck. So we're just trying to innovate and get to there. Obviously the building's in place. We're going to continue on the path of making nozzles, but I got to worry about trucks too. Like it's not just about nozzles and stuff. Like it's nice to be able to do those, but my customers want to drive fun stuff. These trucks make good power, but they don't do burnouts. And if you can't do a burnout, it's not fun, so everybody needs to do a burnout.
It's kind of a long-winded question for you. If I think back to when the podcast started like 8 years ago, I'd get a lot of requests for like, how do I make 900 horsepower in my 6.7 Cummins? Or I want my, LMM or LML to do this. And I haven't seen one of those in a long, long time. It's mostly about either how do I pick up a little bit more power or how do I maintain it? And I think that from like a listener, a truck owner's perspective, that's where their focus is. I'm sure the shops see that as well. And then you see it as Dynomite Diesel products, the shift in those questions. Now with something like the dealer training, do you notice that when you're talking with these business owners, their mindset is more focused on, okay, instead of like, how do I diagnose this issue with the DPF or the DEF system or the EGR system? Or how do I, make this truck more efficient, and what kind of products are now out there for me to be able to offer my customers? Have you noticed that shift as well in what people want to know? And the reason I ask that is because we talked about who is giving you the information, where are you getting the information from? And if I jump on YouTube, I'll see like a short that has 500,000 views with an AI voice, and I know ChatGPT probably wrote it, and it's got the captions on it. And it doesn't tell me a whole lot about the truck, but if I sit and I listen to you, or I listen to other kind of leaders in the industry, I can get answers and figure out that information because it's real and it's experience. So, but I'm curious, like, to me, the dealers are in the middle. They're between the truck owners and they're between you as a manufacturer. Is that a lot of what they were focused on, was emissions on or diagnosing or fixing things or making kind of newer diesels more reliable, kind of like the old ones were?
When Tony was in, he is like, he is the black belt of like diesel emissions, right? So he's going to visit with OEMs. He's working with OEMs on their problems that they're seeing. Like when you purchase a brand new truck, he's one of the guys that the OEMs would reach out to and be like, have you ever heard of this? Or have you ever seen this? Or you got any ideas? And then he shares that information with shop owners. He's not free, but he shows up and does a really good job, and you're getting the latest, greatest information. So I think he's an extremely good asset for people that don't know him. Like, hit me up and I can get you in line with him. But he can go to your shop and train your guys in your shop for a couple of days. And, let's just say it costs you with travel and expenses. Maybe it's maybe a couple, 2 or 3 days, might cost you $4,000 or something like that. But if you don't have to close your shop down and Tony can come and train your guys on the job, and you've got 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles sitting at your shop that you haven't been able to troubleshoot correctly, and when Tony shows up, he goes through all the steps and makes you like basically look at the troubleshooting tree and work it out. Your guys won't need Tony next week, and you're going to be making piles of money because the dudes in your town didn't do that. So yes, like dudes like Tony are extremely good assets. I know things about my world that Tony will never know, and he knows things about his world that I don't know. The funny thing is I sat with Tony and Ryan Milliken, who's an aftermarket tuner race car guy, and the fact that Ryan Milliken knows so bloody much about CAN bus, and Tony knows a lot about CAN bus. Those guys, even though they come from like oil and vinegar, like just two totally different worlds, they completely understood what each other did very, very well, because the vehicle, whether it's stock or 25, 3,000 horsepower, like it's still the same operating system. So it was cool to sit and be a part of that conversation and listen to two dudes on totally different ends be able to jive and understand each other's world, because it's the same goddamn thing. You got a PCM, you got an ECM, you got CAN bus, you got batteries, it's all the same stuff. And Ryan, believe it or not, like everything he works on is, he's going to be using like a lot of aftermarket ECUs and things like that. But that dude could troubleshoot a vehicle very, very, very well over the phone. Like if there was a bunch of guys like Ryan that you could call for $9 a minute, that guy could help people troubleshoot stuff really, really fast. He's really sharp, actually. He understands all the gear pretty dang well, which shocked me because it's not the world he lives in. He's tuning pre-emissions vehicles, and he's tuning a lot of race cars. But still, you've got to know the operating systems of the vehicles, or else you won't be a good tuner, right? It was pretty cool. Like that was a good conversation to just have a whiskey and listen to those guys, because man, there was a lot of knowledge being passed around, and it was really neat. But I guess yeah. What was your question?
Well, I was just thinking Ryan's going to be on the podcast soon, so I'm going to ask him about if he's willing to do a charge by minute for phone diagnosis on trucks. I'll make sure and ask him that. But how with the shops and them diagnosing and being able to interact with them and being able to solve kind of these emissions issues versus the old days of delete it or take it off, and how that's not viable any longer, if that's kind of the feedback you get from a dealer training is, how do we diagnose injector issues or fuel issues on this, 2017 Power Stroke or this 2019 Ram? Is that something that's common in these?
It's very common, and it's my last 5 years have been very frustrating, because everybody, as soon as people started getting popped for deleting trucks, I'm standing there like, no shit. You're kidding me. That's illegal. Duh. Like, we knew that, right? And then as soon as people started getting popped for deleting, they were like, dude, we're not hopping anything up. We're just not buying anything hop up anymore. I'm like, well, hold on. You knew that deleting a vehicle was illegal, but there's still a ton of other stuff that you're not doing your customer a service by mentioning. So if you're going to bring a guy in and you're going to run to O'Reilly's and buy an injector that was remanufactured by Standard Automotive Products, and it's going to cost that guy $350, $400, whatever they are. You're putting in a stock injector, or supposedly stock, but if you tear it apart, it doesn't have any OEM parts, right? So it's not even a stock injector, but it's supposedly a stock flow injector. And the truck's got 120,000 miles on it, needs a set of injectors. Why not offer them an injector that's smoke-free at 50 or 75 or 90 horsepower that gives them a little bit better fuel economy than it did stock? Like, why not offer that? But people, they lost somehow or the other. When shop owners started seeing that people were getting popped, they got scared to death, and they completely wanted to run the other way. When, I'm thinking like, okay, as a shop owner, you need to be smarter than that and thinking like, what can I do to enhance my customer's vehicle? And there's a bunch of products that are available that'll make that thing a lot more fun and a lot more drivable and give something that they still want. Like, You don't need to spend $9,000 on a high dollar transmission if you're just going to replace it with stock parts all the time. But people are still buying $9,000 transmissions. Like, well, why did you upsell them on the tranny, but you're not willing to upsell them on any sort of a power enhancer? Like, there's a ton of like turbos that have been EO tested. There's bigger injection pumps that are, EO tested. We're working on injector testing, and injectors, as far as I'm concerned, like in my last, ever since we got the EDM, my quest has been lower PPM. Like the parts per million of soot, they need to be, the last time Washington State ever tested, you had to be lower than 30 parts per million. And my goal every single time we test out here is lower than 30 parts per million. So if you're buying something, super big, then it needs to be a track vehicle, right? But all of my daily driven stuff, anything that's on our shelf is basically, as far as like Washington State would have passed, it would have passed. So the rest of all the gas testing and all that, that's stuff that, I'm going to go to Edge. They've got $500,000 in gear, and they're able to do like carb EO testing there at Edge. It's a Holly group. They've got a lot of money, and they need to do all that stuff because companies that big move so bloody many products that if they're not constantly testing, then they're going to find themselves in hot water. And with a company my size, we're not moving that many parts. But I still want to be able to, in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, offer people that are tested, are proven, are legal, and enhance the vehicle drivability. You don't have to have 900 horsepower to enjoy a vehicle, right? Like anybody that's driven 900 horsepower understands that the turbos that are on it to support that kind of air aren't that fun from a stoplight to a stoplight. And they're not that fun in a driveway going up a hill. They're not fun trying to tow your boat. They're not fun trying to tow your wife's horse. So, in my world, like 600 is a really good number because at 600, Ford, Chevy, or Dodge, the engines start to need a lot more than people really want to spend. So at this point, I think, if you put more than 600 horse for a 6.7 Cummins, if you've got a big lazy turbo on it, the connecting rods will be okay. But if you have anything that drives very good at 600 horse, the first time you wail on that thing and it makes 1,200 foot-pounds of torque, the next morning when you go to start it cold, it goes blump, 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 blah, 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 and then it clears its throat and it runs good all day. And you're like, wow, fuel economy's down. Every single morning it starts like crap because the connecting rods are like 50 or 60 thousandths shorter than they used to be. And that's what happens the first time you stand on it. So I don't think that, I don't justify 1,000 horsepower dailies. Like people that do it, like they understand. If they don't understand yet, they just bought it and they're soon to learn that driving 1,000 horsepower daily is going to be expensive. So you better enjoy every minute and use those minutes cautiously.
Common question we get from you guys a lot is, hey, I need a diesel engine. I either, I can't wait this long to get one, or normal place I get stuff from it just takes too long, or they don't have the parts in it that I need. Maybe my truck's not stock, or I tow heavy with it. I don't want to go back with just a stock engine. DFC Diesel is a sponsor of the podcast. We worked with them, hand in hand on doing episodes, answering technical questions. They have a complete lineup of Cummins, Duramax, and Power Stroke remanufactured engines that are set to a standard of ISO 9001 2015 standards, which is a huge deal in the aftermarket. And there's certain levels of quality testing, validation that are required for that. So when you get one of those engines, the type of quality that's built behind it with an industry-leading warranty that's really comprehensive. And the other thing with that is, sometimes the options that are out there, it's a basic OEM engine. You want a little bit more. You don't want to have the same failure again. So there's a bunch of different series of engines that they have, from Core, Street, Tow Haul, and also the Speed of Air series, which we've covered on the podcast before. There's a lot of really cool benefits to it. And if you have questions about that, reach out to them. If you don't know the type of engine that you're looking for, if you go to dfcdiesel.com, there's a ton of info there. You can send an email or you can reach out to them. Also, they're working with Speed of Air pistons, which it's the only piston that pays for itself. And there's a lot of really cool technology behind it. So you can add that into your build and be able to get better fuel economy increased power, increased torque, and better engine life out of it. Some of the most common engine applications or series of engines that they have with that lead time, a lot of them are in stock or they have really short lead times. So you can check your favorite retailer or go to dfcdiesel.com, check them out, see what's in stock, see what you can get. If you have questions, maybe you want to do something that's outside of the normal series of engines, they have tons of choices for rods, cranks, pistons, valve train upgrades, tons of different things. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and check them out. Yeah, I remember when 1,000 horsepower daily drivers was like it was the ultimate goal if you were like an enthusiast and you liked going fast, is you wanted that, but it was never really talked about the kind of budget you need for broken parts, whether it's converters, shafts, refreshing the transmission, doing different things like that. And I think it's gotten more balanced now where, and I can just tell by like episode requests that we have, I haven't had one for a 900 horsepower truck or 1,000 horsepower even in years. It's mostly about how do I maintain it, or I don't want to go back with stock. I want something a little bit better. What do I do for injectors, turbo, injection pump? They just want a little bit more of it. So that I think what you talked about with people, they want a little bit more performance or a little bit more torque, but they don't necessarily want to jump into, I need a street race truck and I want to, set money aside for spare parts every year.
The last COVID hit, and what happened? Everybody who was a small business owner got PPE money, and they went out and bought ridiculous shit because basically, the government gave us 2 months of our money back for taxes. Big companies got a lot of money, little companies got a little money, and when I say a little, some of them only got 10 grand. But that was a lot of money that went around. And then, a guy that's working for a paycheck, would they get $600, $700, $800? And if your wife got the same, then, and then a bunch of these people went out and they bought homes, and they claimed that there was some sort of a tragedy. So they bought a spare home, and they claimed that they couldn't make their payment on their other house for a year. And then all of a sudden the year goes by, and then we have a new administration. And the new administration made things fairly tough, and then inflation really hit. So I can't blame it just on the administration because, like, whenever you print money, whenever any country prints money, they're actually printed debt that you're going to have to pay back. And there's always, the eighth wonder of the world is like compound interest, right? So you've got to pay it back, and inflation is inevitable at that point. So we got, hell, man, like during COVID, there was people selling junk motorcycles, junk snowmobiles, junk pickups for a lot of money, and everything was selling. And then COVID dried up, and now people are still hoping that COVID money hits because the inflation finally hit. And now they're like, well, hell, this would have been a lot of money for this thing back then, but now it's not. I saw a really clean, like 1996 12 valve with 145,000 miles, and the guy still wanted 25 grand. I'm like, bro, like, I don't know if you took a nap and just woke up, but COVID's over. Like, your truck's not worth 25 grand. And the only person on the planet that's going to give you 25 grand for your 96 12 valve, well, he's not going to go to the bank for it because the bank's going to loan 100 to 120, maybe 130% of whatever NADA book is. And your truck, that's a $12,000 truck. So you might get a bank to loan 15 or 16 grand on it, but now you got to find some young guy that wants that old truck and has 10 grand in his pocket and is willing to pay the bank payments on that truck. They're just not out there. Like they're just not. So that truck is extremely valuable because it is pre-emissions and it's extremely reliable. And now if you was to buy an old 12 valve like that, like the one that I have, I absolutely love it, but that's been a love-hate relationship because back in the old day when I was a kid, trying to make 600 horsepower was pretty hard. And then I didn't have the transmission problems back then that I have now. Well, now the thing makes, the first dyno hit we made today was over 600, and that was just how it's been set up. But I had to buy a PCS valve body, and that's the only way that thing, because when it gets to 3,000 RPM, the factory PCM sees that this thing's revving up way too fast and you're going too many miles an hour. Factory PCM would send out signal, unlock the converter, and bang this thing into third gear. Well, when you're on the dyno, when you get to like 100 miles an hour at 3,000 RPM and it goes from fourth to third and unlocks at the same time, it's really hard on shit. Like head gasket hard on shit. So it took me a bunch of time trying to jimmy up different ways to make a stock style valve body work. And then finally I gave up. Chris Buchheiter sold me a PCS and a wiring harness. And, thankfully the thing's finally going to come out and work correctly. But, man, if it wasn't for modern technology, that truck would not be fun to drive because it makes really good power right now. Like tomorrow, I'm assuming turbos that are in it, it probably makes 7 or 750, something like that. And it's going to be a ton of fun. Like it'll be a pile of fun to drive. But if we didn't have those old trucks, man, they just weren't near as cool as we thought they were back when when we thought they were cool, they weren't cool. And now we've got, better injectors, better injector pumps, better transmissions, all of these things that are just way, way, way better. And you can make a 15-year-old truck pretty crazy to drive. But yeah, I don't know. I can ramble about old trucks forever.
Well, one of the cool things about this time of year is Black Friday sales, and for saving money, being able to get some upgrades or just get something better than stock. I know it's a great time of year to buy. Before we get to that, though, there was a question I wanted to ask you about business. There was a person that had sent an Instagram message to us, and they said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to start a diesel company, and I think they're going to be kind of more focused on the agricultural, maybe industrial side of it." But they said, "I can't really find a lot of information on starting it out. Do you have anything like that?" So I went through and I got some of our older episodes and sent them links and stuff. But they had a question I've never asked you or anyone else on the podcast, and that was about insurance. And I don't know anything about it. I don't own a diesel shop. I never have. What sort of advice would you give somebody who's just starting out with, like, what type to make sure they have it, to find the best rates? What should they look for when they're just starting out as it pertains to insurance policies?
That's easy. Basically, you need to find an insurance person that you can sit down with and have a real open conversation with, because the insurance professional is exactly that. They will know, based off of what you tell them you're going to be doing and whatnot, what you need to be budgeting for insurance. And with my insurance guy, Dave, his name's David Bully. I started with him with just insuring my building, and he was kind of frustrated because he drove an hour out, looked at the building, drove an hour back, and I'm like, bro, like, this doesn't seem like much to you, but promise you, like in a month or 3 or 6, I'm going to need more insurance on different things. And now, if I don't sit with Dave every 6 months and have a lunch, I think I'd be surprised, because I do believe that I sit with him at least once every 6 months and talk about things, because every time I do something new in the company and some new development in the company, or I buy some new tool or widget or whatever, he comes at that from an angle like, I'm just trying to figure out how to make money with it, how it makes my employees more efficient, how it makes our shop more comfortable, whatever, right? And he's looking at it like, well, now that puts you in a bucket over here that like, we need to be thinking about that from the insurance perspective. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And that, if you find a good insurance person as your business guy, use him for your home, your auto, your everything, and make sure that you make your insurance person shop, because when something does get out of line, like building insurance, he's got other resources to look at, and the wording of how your building is being used can heavily influence what the insurance is going to cost on just a building. So it's really good to have a really solid relationship with an insurance person that is sharp in their game, because they can make you or break you. You know, I've got a couple of cousins, and they've got a house in Tampa, and it's an Airbnb. Well, just recently, their home was under 4 feet of water, and they're like right on a canalway. So the water was up 10 feet over where it normally would be. So, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I met them for dinner last night, and they flew the hardwood floor guy from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho to Tampa, Florida, and he's down there right now. And he thinks he's going to be done by Thursday redoing all the floors in the house this week. There was nobody in Tampa. They got one quote from like a Home Depot or whatever, and it was like 40 grand. And this is not a big ass house. This is not a huge house. This is just like LVP in a home that they rent. It's nothing crazy. And the dudes that the Home Depot or whatever wanted 40 grand. It was basically on labor, because right now every contractor that's available in Tampa is rebuilding everybody else's house.
Yeah.
So my cousins offered this dude $1,000 a day in labor, and he's down that he bought product, shipped it in. They're going to be thousands of dollars saved compared to the $40,000 estimate. But if they didn't have insurance on that, like their neighbors across the street, they were under legitimately, like they were like 6 or 8 or 10 feet under, depending on where the house was, underwater by 6, 8, or 10 feet. Everything in that house is trashed. The car that was in the garage, it was a Corvette, is trashed. This is salt water. Like everything, and that poor dude did not have enough insurance. So their neighbors are probably potentially just going to have to sell the place and move to someplace a lot cheaper because they didn't have enough insurance to cover it. So, man, insurance sucks to pay for, because it's like throwing money into the wind and just knowing that you're covered. But it's really, really, really shitty if you don't have enough and something happens to you. So make friends with a local insurance professional and make sure that that professional meet them for lunch, buy them lunch once in a while, tell them what you're doing, tell them what you're up to, have them come by your shop, check things out. Not just an automotive diesel shop, but whatever it is you do for a living, like make them walk through your front door once in a while and look at your company from like the liability point of view. And then if you're overpaying for insurance, then ask them, like, is there anything here I don't need? Is there anything that I should have? And let them explain to you, if you don't buy this insurance and this happens, this is where you're at. Like key employee insurance, that's a big deal, but it's kind of tough to pay for. But worst comes, the worst case scenario happens to one of your employees, and they're covered. So there's all sorts of things, but my 100% recommendation is get a really good insurance person that you associate with and can mingle with and can jive with very, very easily.
Awesome. I will make sure and direct them to you answering their question. I appreciate you doing it. I saw a post you guys did on Instagram recently with some Black Friday sales, some holiday sales, and some good savings. I wanted to ask you, for our listeners, what can they expect? What are you guys running promotions on?
Well, I mean, basically right now, yeah, the Black Friday is running, and it used to be like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and this year we got more aggressive on it. We opened it up for a longer period of time. We used to hold a Veterans Day sale, and I think now we opened it up during Veterans Day and we're just letting it run. And a lot of that basically is a big thank you to all of our consumers. Our success is based on them, and we were already doing a lot with parts and pieces. We were selling a lot more this year than last year, but right now, ever since that sales hit, like daily sales are up by about 20 or 25% since the sale hit. So it's pretty cool that many people are trusting us with their stuff. But it also makes me feel good because I know that a lot of younger people that have kids and stuff, they're starting out in life, and every penny, especially in this past 2, 3, 4 years, inflation has eaten every single last cent. So the fact that I'm actually able to help our our family of customers and give them a discount on stuff. The fact that they're able to take advantage of it right now really makes me feel good inside because, at the end of the day, like we're still going to be around after this sale. But for those people that waited and, got their very last few miles out of a set of injectors, knowing that, they're getting good stuff right now it makes me happy. Right. So it's just, I have that conversation often with people. Like, I had a guy that went to work for one of my competitors and he was there for 6 months. And he's like, man, it was just a business model I couldn't support. Like, we were taking cores that we were buying and we'd throw them in a test machine. And if they passed, we called them reman injectors and made them look pretty and then send them down the road. And the owner of the building was like, not everybody can afford a $300 injector. But yet, when you sell somebody a core, you don't know if that thing's got 50,000 miles on it or 500,000 miles on it. So there was a lot more warranty calls than this guy, my buddy, wanted to deal with. And I was like, dude, I totally get it. Like my life is based on the fact that I hate being yelled at. I don't want to get yelled at by a customer, by anybody. So I just try and build stuff that I don't have to worry about. And that's, in my world, it's proven successful.
Yeah, it's a great time to save money, get some quality products that you talked about today, a lot of our other podcasts. So it's a great time of year to do some upgrades, and I know you guys make it very easy, like on the website, to just jump on there and be able to see, based on what year, make, model you have, different options. And then for those guys who are doing maybe some high performance builds, you have that injector sheet that you've talked about where they can fill it out and get some custom recommendations for different injectors.
Custom injector order sheet is a big deal. Like that gives us all the data that we need to make sure that we get you the right product the first time. A lot of people think that, they need 100% over, 200% over, 500% over. And it's because they read some forum somewhere and that's what they think they need. But then they fill out the custom injector order sheet. And then if something's out of line, myself or Skylar or one of the guys at the shop will call you and then say, hey, look, I noticed you want to make 1,000 horsepower and, you got all this other stuff. When's all that going to get taken care of? And you're like, well, on the internet forum, everybody says it's going to be okay. And then you explain to them why it's not going to be okay and prevent them from like melting a motor down. That's a very valuable thing, right? So custom injector order sheet's a big deal for us. We use it every single day. The website, I will say, you touched on that just real quick. And the website this year, like our staff put a lot of effort into that and we upgraded it big time. So it makes our dealer experience a lot smoother. And the end user, if you're buying something retail, which, a lot of guys during this sale, they are buying stuff at retail. I think that the dealer or the purchasing experience and how smooth it is, I think that's a lot better this year than it ever has been. So if anybody have any problems with that, like you can call the shop at 208-209 3214, 208-209-3214. I always do that, and then I give out my cell phone number, so I have to think, like, is this my cell or is this my important? Yeah, so 208-209-3214. And then Brian Bailey is the guy that you would speak to if there is something that you see on the website that needs to be tuned up, fixed up. But, Tim, Brian, any of the guys, Mike, they're there. We don't have a lot of people answering phones. But the people that I do have answering phones, they've got real life experience. They drive these trucks and they've been with me now for years. That's the beauty to all this is like Brian Bailey's been with me for 10 years. Tim has been in the diesel industry since Bully Dog, H&S, Alligator, and now Dynomite. So he's been in the business at least 10 years. Stephanie, she's the gal that's in charge of just shipping, things like that. But her husband, Chris, he owns CR2 Performance. So, she's been around this gig for a good long time. I just don't have any people that are like lacking in knowledge or they're pretty, all these people are pretty passionate about it. Like we've got, that's one thing I really love about my company is the fact that we have people that choose to be in this industry because they actually enjoy it. And that makes my customer experiences a lot better than just, hello, so-and-so's power shop, like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, they don't care. They don't know. They don't know right or wrong. And you're going to ask them questions and they're going to read it right off their website. You're not learning anything that you couldn't have learned just off their website. With my people, they know if there's some super techie question, they can call me or text me. My work cell phone is actually on my Facebook page, like on the profile picture, and I use that thing. So if anybody out there, like any of your customers, I shouldn't say customers, if any of your listeners ever have a question, whether it's how to work on the company, how to work on a truck, whatever, my cell phone number is actually on my Facebook page, and you can, shoot me a text. Hi, my name's so and so. I'm, doing this, that, and the other. If you get 5 minutes, can you give me a call? And surprisingly enough, I'll probably call you back. But yeah, bear in mind that it's a work cell phone, so I don't have it with me on the weekends. And you wouldn't like to hear what I have to say if you call me on a Sunday. So I might mail you something that you don't want.
It's always cool catching up with you and talking about the things going on. And like I said, when I saw the dealer training, there were so many different directions and questions that I had for you, about that. And then just being able to transfer the knowledge and the advancements that Dynomite Diesel has made in injectors, especially with these newer trucks and all the things you've learned with them, and being able to infuse that, get a little bit more power, a little bit more torque on newer trucks, and not just having to settle for it being stock is really cool. Plus, the Black Friday sale, Cyber Monday, that's huge. Great way to save some money. So I appreciate you chatting with me this afternoon. Look forward to chatting with you again. You guys move so fast. There's always new developments. So every time we talk, there's something new, and I definitely enjoy that.
No, I appreciate you, and appreciate all your listeners. Like I say, if anybody needs me, then just go to my Facebook page. You'll see it says Lenny's work cell phone number. Shoot me a text or a call, and if I have to direct you to somebody else to get you help out, I will. But I really do enjoy working with like younger entrepreneurs, and I don't care if you own a flower shop or a coffee shop, whatever. If you're in the concrete business, if I can help you with your business, like, man, I've taken some lumps and I would love to share that knowledge, and it's free. I'm not asking anybody for money, but it is kind of cool. America's built on small business, and it's really neat to see young people that have enough fire to go out and do their own thing. So if I can help anybody in that way, like, please hit me up. I'll do what I can.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code 40 TDP 2024 to get up to 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear. If you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house, we got you covered with a bunch of different choices for opening mechanisms, blade steel, blade shape, handle designs, and their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget. So we appreciate them offering this discount code just for Diesel podcast listeners. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, J Cole, CUTTERUP, Robert. We appreciate all your support, and all of our other patrons, all of you who subscribe on YouTube, podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 8 of the Diesel podcast, and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2024. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.